The human brain, an organ more complex than any supercomputer. It holds our memories, shapes our personality, and controls every movement we make. But what if someone were living with only 10% of it? For decades, scientists believed that brain function depended on having a full, intact brain. But a shocking medical case turned that belief upside down. This is the story of a man whose brain was almost entirely missing, and yet he lived a completely ordinary life. It all started in 2007. A 44-year-old man visited the hospital for a minor problem, mild weakness in his left leg. It wasn't life-threatening, but doctors ordered a brain scan just to be sure. What they found was beyond comprehension. Over 90% of his brain was gone, replaced by cerebrospinal fluid. The brain's outermost layer remained intact, but the vast majority of the brain's mass had simply vanished over time. This condition didn't develop overnight. The man had unknowingly lived with a rare case of hydrocephalus since childhood. Hydrocephalus is a condition where cerebrospinal fluid builds up inside the skull, increasing pressure and pushing brain tissue to the edges. In most cases, this leads to severe developmental issues, but in this man's case, his brain adapted in an unimaginable way. For years, his brain had been shrinking without him realizing it. And yet, despite having only 10% of his brain mass left, he lived without cognitive disabilities. How is this even possible? How can a person function with so little brain tissue? Scientists believe the answer lies in neuroplasticity. The brain is not just a rigid organ, it's adaptable. It can rewire itself to compensate for lost areas. In this case, the remaining 10% of his brain may have taken over the functions of the missing 90%. Surprisingly, the man's IQ was 75, below average but still within a functional range. He held a steady job as a civil servant, was married, and had children. His condition didn't stop him from living a normal life. This isn't the only case that challenges what we know about the brain. Phineas Gage, a 19th century railroad worker, survived an iron rod passing straight through his skull. Though his personality changed, he remained functional. There are even documented cases of people born with only half a brain who still developed language, reasoning, and motor skills. It's as if the brain rewrites its own rules to survive. If a person can live with just 10% of their brain, what does that tell us about human consciousness, about intelligence, and about the limits of what we can survive? Some neuroscientists believe this case proves that intelligence and consciousness don't depend on brain size alone, but rather on how efficiently the remaining parts communicate. This case is a testament to the brain's resilience, its ability to adapt and function even under extreme conditions. But it also reminds us of how little we truly understand about the mind. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't just how the brain works, but how much more we have yet to discover.